Hey there, I'm Graham Parker, and you're listening to the Around Pickens podcast. Throughout this year, I've been seeing articles in the Pickens Progress about safety upgrades coming to different schools around the county. Reading about them made me reflect on my own experiences with safety in our school system. Honestly, it wasn't something I thought too much about. We had the usual fire and tornado drills a couple of times a year, but I never really had a feeling of being unsafe in school. School shootings and other tragedies were far and few between enough, so the idea of something like that happening here in Pickens just never really crossed my mind. But times have changed. Surveys show that school and college-age youth are more concerned about their safety on campus than at any other point in our nation's history. And for good reason. With school starting back, I wanted to interview a campus law enforcement officer about how they work to ensure students and staff study and work in a safe environment. But as I looked further into the issue and met people working in that space, I began to understand that the business of school safety is a lot more complex than I had initially realized. It requires tight coordination with multiple organizations and proactive planning for a multitude of possible situations. Fortunately, I got the opportunity to speak to two of the men responsible for overseeing that planning. Donnie Craig has been Pickens County Sheriff since 2008, and some of his deputies are the ones that work the schools as campus law enforcement officers. He works in coordination with Pickens County Schools Chief Operations Officer, Chris Wallace, a man who not only oversees school safety matters, but also facility maintenance, new construction, and transportation for all school buildings. What you're about to listen to is an informal discussion we had about the state of safety at our schools, during which we covered a variety of topics, including drills, specialized training for officers and staff, and new security technology being deployed across the district. As you can probably tell from the length of this episode, this was a bit out of the ordinary for the show. And besides the length of the conversation, we ran into a couple of technical difficulties while recording, something viewers on YouTube will probably notice. Nevertheless, I hope these things don't distract from the discussion, because this is a very in-depth look about a topic that is close to the hearts of most people in our community. Because of that, I decided to forego the calendar and question the chairman parts of the show so that we can keep the focus on today's subject. Even so, I do want to quickly plug those two things for anyone who may not be familiar with the show. There are some pretty big things coming up in October, including the Pickens County Marble Festival, Talking Rock Heritage Days, the Tate Day Festival, and so much more. If you want to know more about these things and other events happening in Pickens this month, check out the calendars on visitpickensga.com and nopickens.com, both of which are jam-packed with information about things to do around the county. Also, have you ever wanted to ask the county's head honcho why something is the way it is? Well, this is your chance. Once per episode, Chairman Chris Stansel answers a question from you, the viewer. If you have a question you would like Chris to answer, you can submit it to questions@pickenscountyga.gov. Or if your question is concise enough and appropriate enough, we might just put it on the air. With all that out of the way, let's dive in and learn a little bit about how school safety is being handled here in Pickens. Well, Sheriff Craig, Mr. Wallace, thank you for joining me this morning. I know you guys have got busy schedules, so I appreciate any time we can get.
Absolutely.
I guess at this point that we're recording, students are out on fall break right now?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So they've been going for about 6 weeks now?
That's correct. Started about right around August 1st, so
yep.
Glad to get a little break for them.
Yeah, I believe it. Just getting familiar with the school curriculum, school schedule. I know part of that's also being familiar with their surroundings and what to do in an emergency situation, which is what we're here to talk about today, the two aspects that your organizations work with school safety. So before we really get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, could I have you guys just briefly introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about the role your jobs play in school safety?
Okay. So my role as Chief Operations Officer encompasses a lot of different things, but in specifically to school safety and security at all of our campuses and all of our facilities that we own and manage through the school district in partnership with, of course, Sheriff's Department, which we've got a great relationship with, great partnership that we have had going for several years now. And, I think it's the most important thing we focus on in our district. If we don't have the kids feeling safe about coming in to learn, they're not going to be able to concentrate and learn. Same with the adults. It's all centered around kids, but in school safety, we have to think about the adults. We've got about 630 employees that we're also trying to keep safe. So that's my primary responsibility, and follows into transportation and nutrition, health services, and maintenance, new construction, a few other things, but nothing more important than school safety.
Okay, Donnie Craig is the sheriff here in Pickens County. As we're talking about the schools, our primary role is to provide that safe and healthy environment for students and staff at all of our campuses throughout the school. Of course, we work very closely with the school system. And I like to say, not only do you get those 7 campus law enforcement deputies, but you get the entire sheriff's office. And we work very hard to build that relationship with the students, the staff, and the board with the education. And we're very fortunate, I think, in our community to have the relationship that we have. We've been a part of campus law enforcement has now been in the school since 2010, early January, I think 2010. We started that with just a couple. And now we're very fortunate to have a deputy in each school and 2 at the high school.
We're good. Tell me a little bit of the history of that. When your office took over the day-to-day responsibilities of school safety, and how has that changed over time?
So when I was elected in 2009, the school system had their own campus police department. And there was, I think at that time, maybe three officers working for the school. And, they jumped around from school to school and putting out fires, so to speak, wherever they were needed. And in late 2009, I think a couple of those employees had left. And then I think we were down to 1 working in the school system. And we were able to work with the school and put a proposal together to provide deputies in the school. Again, not only for that law enforcement purpose, but to build that relationship with the students. So in 2010, I hired the last remaining campus police officer that worked, which was Keith Wall back then. He came to work for us, and then we assumed those responsibilities along with the Board of Education. And, started providing a few deputies. And again, we've been able to grow that over the last several years to now we have 1 in each school and 2 at the high school, which is phenomenal. For a county our size, you just don't see that in a lot of those counties, other counties throughout Georgia.
Right. And from what I understand, you were the principal at the high school before this?
Yes, so served over there 5 years as the principal, a couple years as assistant principal in that location, 12 years total working there. So wow. I've gotten to see this from its inception all the way to where it has become to this day, and truly has grown and gotten better and better, which to me makes us safer. The better our relationship is, the better we communicate and partner up on these initiatives. Our kids win and the staff wins from a safety standpoint. So it's been fun to be part of it and to see it grow, and us just continue to see where we can take it from here, make it even better.
Absolutely. And I'd like to talk about how your organizations work together. Could either of you tell me a bit about the training that the law enforcement officers receive and some of the training that the staff receive?
Sure. So from a staff standpoint, we like to give them an overview of refresher every year, just general expectations. Each school has a safety plan, making sure they understand what we're asking them to do. We have new teachers that come in, from different districts, so every district may do it a little different, but kind of knowing how we do here in Pickens County and what our process is. And so then the idea is a couple times a year we would get with smaller groups, teachers on their planning periods, 10, 15, 20 max, and get them into a classroom and make it a little more intimate of a setting where they are comfortable asking questions a little more and, what if scenarios, and then just refreshing everything that, they've been expected to do to help protect the kids that are under their watch at that time, with whatever their concentration is. It looks different from a teacher that has a gym class than a teacher that has a regular math class or an ag teacher where they go out to other facility on the campus. So, it does look a little different. So it gives us a little bit more time to specialize in what it means for their particular role and how they operate every day. So kind of covers both ends of the spectrum for them, and then also allows us to channel information and education of updated trends, because things change constantly, and that's where we obviously rely on the Sheriff's Department to help us with that too. So they're very good to help us with the training and come in and send somebody in to answer any questions we can't. So it's again a partnership.
And of course, from there, on the law enforcement side, our deputies are, certified mandated officers. Most of those deputies are seasoned and been around for a while. We try not to put just a new deputy in the school. We want some of our better, well-trained folks there in the school system, and the ones that really want to be there. I think that makes a difference for the kids and the staff. But outside of our regular law enforcement training, then we're able to come in. Like I said, and we started this years ago when Chris was at high school, beginning of each year, and teaching what is known as CRAZE, or the Citizen Response to Active Shooter. So they actually allow us a time period before the school to talk to all the staff and teachers about an incident if it was to occur, such as a school shooting type situation or active attack. And then from there, we're able to try to spend some one-on-one time with some of the teachers and staff. And again, because like Chris said, it is a different situation if you're in a classroom, how you're going to react versus, if you're in the ag barn or things like that. So try to get them thinking ahead of what can happen and what are you going to do if it does. And then, after that initial, we do a lot of training through the sheriff's office and public safety as a whole, dealing with active shooter type training. And we're very fortunate that with the relationship we have with the school, we come in and actually teach all of public safety, the law enforcement, the police, the sheriff's office, the 911, fire. We're all working together, and we're training right here in our own schools for an event that we hope and pray never happens. But if it does, we want to be prepared. So it's one thing to teach something in a classroom and watch a video, but when you can put boots on the ground in those hallways, clearing those those classrooms and through those long hallways, they've got an idea of what could happen. So.
Well, beyond the staff and the men and women in uniform, I know part of being prepared is training the students as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the drills that the school system conducts?
Yeah, so we've always been mandated to have fire and weather drills in the school. Just recently, they've started mandating that we have an active intruder or lockdown type drill. Last year, when I took over the safety and security for the district, we put in one drill per quarter. So for a year, we felt like, again, it changes all the time, and what we need to prepare for changes. So you want to keep that fresh on their mind. So in addition to the required state drills we do for a year. Now this year they're letting schools substitute out one of the fire drills for an intruder drill, and they actually, require that for every school in the state. But we try to be a little better than the minimum requirement, just one per quarter, so 4 times a year. It's not too invasive in the school. Administrators have been very, very receptive to that and willing to do that. And then, of course, these are logged through our state drill system to make sure they show up there, that we can document that they've been done. So we don't tell them the exact day they have to do it, but we do have a schedule for them. I lay it out every year so they can have a calendar to keep up with when we need them done by, to make sure they are handled. And, of course, it looks a little different elementary than it does at high school. So, I'm always there to support them if they need help. Again, new administration, whatever, going through the schools. So whatever we need, and of course the SROs are involved in that as well. Make sure everybody knows what to do in the event of an active intruder. And like Sheriff Craig said, we pray and hope that it never happens. But we want to be very well prepared in the event that it does happen here.
Yeah, and speaking to that, we have 6 different schools in the district, different building layouts, student ages and populations. How do you ensure consistent safety standards across the board?
So this year, the Department of Homeland Security, for Georgia Department of Homeland Security, they've required that you have a safety plan for every school, which we already had in place, but it has some different criteria. So there are a lot of consistencies among what they require and they oversee. We'll have to have our local EMA approve these, and then Department of Homeland Security will approve these as well. We have a regional coordinator that we submit these to. And so we do keep the same platform as far as how the layout is, that's consistent, because we do have some staff that go to different schools as well. So they don't need to learn 6 different plans if they go to 6 schools. Right. So we do that to keep it consistent. And then also having just one person that kind of oversees it from my office there. What I do is just making sure that the administration and the staff, through our trainings and through our other talks, just in general, that they have an understanding what is expected out of each level, command all the way down to any role in the school. Everybody has a role, and we need to make sure everybody understands and really captures that role. And is all in case we ever need them. So have some safety teams. We have several different applications of teams depending on what is needed. A search team. So anybody with medical background in the school, that's always helpful to have them on your teams as well in case we need to render aid. So yeah, I mean it's an effort to try to keep it. No matter what building you go in, you see the same things occurring, although what we can expect from a high school student, their part in participating in this versus a kindergarten student is going to look different, obviously. But in a crisis situation, all students are going to have to be directed. They're all, they're all going to look to us to be able to guide them on what needs to be done to keep everybody safe. So in that regard, the kids are the same in that sense. I mean, we have to make sure we direct them. They're going to be looking to us. So it's very important we keep everybody trained and keep it consistent. That's what we try to do here. And I know a lot of people have different philosophies, but that's what we try to do here.
Yeah.
And one thing I'd like to point out is, and Chris, you mentioned that the state now has come in and they have certain requirements, mandates that the school system has to follow. And that's a new requirement, I think, this year.
Yes.
But our school system has been doing that for several years. These guys have really gone above and beyond over the years to really focus on public safety, to make sure that each school had that plan in place and everybody knew what to do. So, I would think at this point for y'all meeting that requirement would be very easy. It's just a matter of submitting your plan up for somebody else to review. So.
Yep.
Let's turn the conversation a little bit to the role that technology is playing in prevention. I've seen a lot of articles in the progress throughout the year, upgrades coming to different campuses. Right. Let me get either one of you to just jump in and talk about some of the new technology your organizations are deploying and the impact that's having on school safety.
So, one of the big things, and I think probably one of the most controversial things that I've done as sheriff in the last 15 years is red speed cameras. And flock cameras. I know we're living in a day where technology is available, and it is a huge benefit to public safety and the community. But also a lot of people are concerned about the big brothers watching and what's really going on behind the scenes. But we done a study probably 4 years ago with the speeding in the school zones and in front of these schools, and it has always been an issue way back to when the campus police was actually trying to direct traffic in front of these schools. Very dangerous. And so we done a study 4 years ago. We looked at that time, I think we had about 1,700 speeding violations in each of our school zones in one day. In one day, it was 1,700. 2 years ago, the last study we done, we were over 2,000 speeding violations. And I'll be honest, I was blown away to see that, we've got somebody coming through Tate at, 60, 70 miles an hour during those school times. Same thing, Hill City, obviously, state routes, but even in front of the junior high school, right there in front of Roper Park with a four-way stop. We've got folks coming through, 55 and 60 miles an hour. It just blows my mind. Unfortunately, we don't have the staff to sit out in front of each school each day to enforce that traffic. We've done the best we could, but with technology now allows us to put in the speed cameras. So our speed cameras are going up in front of all of our schools except for the middle school, which is right here inside the city, and then the high school. The high school sets off a little too far for us to be able to run those speed cameras. All the other campuses have those cameras up and going, and it's interesting. The last study was around 2,000. I pulled the numbers this past week, and we had 115 speeding violations in front of our schools, and that was two schools that were not online yet. But that is a huge difference. Of course, our two busiest, is 53 over at Hill City, and then of course in front of Tate Elementary. But to be able to see those numbers cut down tremendously, I'm very pleased with that, and to see how much it's already reduced. And we don't even have everything online. We've not wrote the first citation, the first warning, or anything yet, and we've already seen a huge decrease. The other side of technology with those cameras, they tie into what we refer to as our flock cameras. So flock cameras are stationed throughout the county in different areas, They're tag readers. They allow us to get alerts as a vehicle passes by. If you've got somebody that is on a wanted list, say with Homeland Security, or there's outstanding warrants for driving a stolen vehicle. Maybe there's a court order against this individual, or maybe they're on a sex offender registry. As they pass these cameras, flock is running their tags and is sending us, and I say us, the deputies that are actually working the road, gets an immediate alert within like 2 seconds that this vehicle has passed this location and this is their situation. Our red speed cameras will also tie into these flock cameras. So now we will get this flock alert. We'll go back to Tate Elementary. Years ago, we had a sex offender came onto campus, and we didn't know it until they were already there. These cameras will send an immediate notification to that deputy working the school that a sex offender is in the area. Now we understand that they may have business, they may be, have a reason to be there, and that's okay. But if they're not, at least we're ahead of it and we can check on it. If there's a individual with a court order not to be around their family, maybe there's a domestic situation going on, and and then somebody shows up to check a kid out of school and they're not supposed to be there. Well, we get that immediate alert. We have just getting a flock camera installed on Dragon Drive. So while we can't do the red speed at the intersection, we're actually installing the flock camera on Dragon Drive. So every vehicle that pulls onto campus, we will now get that alert, and we will know who's coming on the campus. And as I say, if they're up to no good, we should know that ahead of time, and that's going to be a huge benefit. But
yeah, absolutely. Sounds like it's already having results.
it is, absolutely. And, it amazes me, as soon as those cameras went up, everybody's on social media saying, yeah, they're writing tickets and they're doing this, and they weren't even operating. But you could watch the traffic as it come by those schools. People were already slowing down.
May I ask, are those cameras on all the time or just during school hours?
So the red speed cameras are operating 24/7, but they are not issuing citations unless it is 1 hour before school through the school day to 1 hour after. And the kids have to be in school. So like this week, if they were operating, they would not be issuing any citations. And I say the cameras issuing citations. The cameras are actually recording the individual vehicle as it passes and the speed. That information is logged into the computer system. Our deputies then have to log into the computer. They have to review that violation. They have to make sure that everything was working properly and that vehicle is registered to the individual owner, and then they, being the deputies, decide whether or not to issue that citation. Once they review it and approve it, then that citation is mailed to the individual. They can then either choose to pay the citation online, which is a civil fine, not a criminal. It does not go on their driver's record. Or they can choose to have their case heard in court. In Pickens County, those cases will go in front of the magistrate judge. And the magistrate judge will hear those cases and see that evidence and make the determination whether or not they need to be found guilty and pay a fine, or they need to be released.
That's fantastic. I'm glad here it's not entirely automated. There is some human element reviewing that.
And the other question or concern is, well, what if that changes? What if the law changes and allows them to issue those citations without us reviewing them and being involved? And I just want to remind folks that as sheriff, it was my decision to implement this program along with the Board of Education at that time. They obviously we discussed that, and they had to sign off on the permits. But ultimately, it's my decision. It's my responsibility. And if things change and they're not being done properly, or it's trying to issue citation outside of what the law allows, then we will not allow that to continue. Either they're going to do it and do it right, or we're not going to have them in our county. So, lots of stories about other agencies and how they're doing. They're issuing citations after hours. It's, for a couple of miles an hour over. That will not be the case here. You have to be doing at least 11 miles an hour over before any citation is issued. So, and I anticipate we'll have this online over the next couple of weeks. and we'll issue warnings for the first 30 to 45 days. Again, it's not about revenue, and that's something everybody keeps, getting on social media. It's all about the money. No, it's about the safety, and I think the cameras have already proven themselves based on the numbers we're seeing. Obviously, there is revenue that's generated from the fines and the forfeitures, and those fines, basically 70 to 75% of that comes back to the Pickens Sheriff's Office to be spent back on public safety. And then the remaining monies is to pay for the company and the upkeep of the cameras.
Well, Mr. Wallace, could you tell us about improvements happening inside of school buildings?
Yeah, so our biggest piece of technology we rely on is a system called Centegix, and Centegix is communication emergency management software that gives us capability to silently alert law enforcement administrators in the building of a need for some assistance. So a couple different alerts they can activate with a badge. It's a little card. Actually have mine on me here, but just like a little credit card, we all wear them, and it has a button on there. And on that card, you press it a designated number of times, and you get what's called a staff alert that stays internal in the school. In other words, someone, medical emergency, something like that, they just need some help down there, unruly child. They can press that, activate that. They can activate it another way, and they can actually lock the school down. And so with a lockdown feature, you get strobe lights, you get the cavalry. So it's going to alert outside and inside the school. So you're going to get law enforcement, 911 involved. Every SRO in the district is going to be notified, of course. And what is the beautiful thing about the system is it will tell you exactly where that badge is once activated. So you know the room number. I have an app on my phone, so I get the notification, and I can tell exactly where it's coming from, not only the school, but actually where in the school it's been activated, as do the SROs and Sheriff's Department have that same capability. So it will help us get to the need more quickly, and also send the signal out in the event we have to lock the school down. Then everybody's notified, whether kids are in the hallway or they're in a classroom. You get the strobe lights inside. There's an audible notification through the intercom system, which is very upgraded and new to us in the last couple of years. So it really is awesome what the technology will do for us. That's something that we have in all 6 of our schools, and we have had for the last 4 to 5 years. We just are upgrading, just signed an agreement with this company to upgrade for the next 4 years, and they'll be changing out, even making the system better. You can do asset management on there as far as where all your AEDs are, where your fire extinguishers are, where your pull stations are. So there's a lot of features to it, but the main thing is the silent alert system, which is actually becoming law in some places, called Alyssa's Law. It came out of the Stoneman Douglas massacre in Florida. Florida has a law that all schools must have a silent alert system that they can activate this way. New Jersey's in the process, I believe, and I think it'll be here eventually. But we want to be ahead of that, obviously. So every staff member gets a badge, and they have the opportunity to and capability to alert people as needed. The other thing it does is it sends us a badge report every month, and we can manage and see if there's a low battery or if the badge hasn't been detected on the campus. Then we know if people are actually coming in to and from campus with the badge on. So our expectation is every day, for everybody. We want everybody to have that capability if we're going to pay for it. So that's one thing. We have over 700 cameras, security cameras in the district, which is SROs again have access to. The administrators in the building have access to. We also, in addition to that, have classroom cameras in every classroom. So in the event there's some kind of problem in the classroom, a teacher can activate a microphone. It's recording 365, so you can have the recording all the time, but they can activate it actually. Microphone, and we can actually tap into that and see that. Administration can. So, we got a lot of high-tech equipment there in the schools. Of course, doors, locks, safety vestibules. We now have safety vestibule operational in every school. You have to be buzzed in, which is another technology that you can't just walk up and come in the door. You can get to the front office, and then the person there has to allow you into the school. We finished the last one of those in the high school this year. And of course, we have a great radio system that works in the schools very well. Digital radio system. You can talk, school to school through the sheriff's department with the SROs. They have those kind of radios as well. And I keep one with me, so you have central office contact as well. So internally and externally, and it works through our internet. So it's really reliable and it's really good. There, we spend a lot of money on technology, but also in a strategic way to make sure it fits our needs based on what we're seeing and what we really need. So communication, obviously, huge deal to prevent, but also to respond. We want to make sure we have everything covered from a technology standpoint. We issue all our administrators cell phones as well. Pretty standard technology there, but we got pretty much everything we need. The board's been very generous, and superintendents have supported our initiatives when we've needed something like that. This particular Centegix program platform we paid for with a safety grant from the state. People may have heard of. We got $50,000 per school to spend how we saw fit. So we earned $300,000 through that grant. It's reimbursable. You spend it and get reimbursed through the state, and so that's been really helpful because this stuff's not cheap. Technology's there, but it's not cheap, and always something new and fresh out there for you to find and spend money on. But want to again make sure it's something we believe in that makes a difference for us. So really excited that we have these. I think it's a real peace of mind for the teachers. It's something they really seem to be excited to have that opportunity. It gives them, we got some big buildings. High school's over 300,000 square feet itself. So, it's hard for even 2 SROs. It's great to have that, but you're limited to what you can cover in a day with the admin and the SROs. So we rely on the technology a lot.
I was just going to add to that. You talk about all the cameras, and we were very fortunate to start a few years ago adding body cameras and in-car cameras, and we recently had a $1.2 million grant given to us by the governor to enhance that. And now we have every certified deputy we have that is out on the road or working in the schools or in the jail, and they're all now wearing those good high def body cameras. So, and that helps us to kind of see what's going on, and God forbid there's an incident there. Not only do we have access to the cameras Chris has talked about, but we also have access to those body cameras for the deputies in real time. So, if we're working, say I'm at the office, something happens, I can log in and see exactly what's going on at the time it's happening. So, technology has improved a lot. We've been very fortunate again to leverage that technology. And, you talk about the schools and securing those entrances. I remember in 2010 when we started, doors were being propped open and you could come and go and just about any school, any area that you wanted. Today, my chief deputy and I were down to school a week ago checking on an area behind the back. We didn't check in. We just pulled around back and was taking care of business, and it wasn't just a second. I had 2 teachers and an administrator out there wanting to know just what we were doing. We were both in plain clothes, and then just a second later, the SRO shows up, and so a few years ago that never would have happened. We've had. I went to visit recently a Champs graduation class, and as a sheriff, I think, and I can get in, I can get back. I don't know, I sit in the lobby and I wait until somebody can escort me back. And, I'm beyond proud of how those schools have been secured over the last several years, because I can remember doing a walkthrough with individuals that, and we could go anywhere and was never questioned. And now, like I said, as sheriff, I can't even pull up on the campus without somebody questioning, what do you need? What can we do to help you? Or why are you in my back parking lot? And that's huge. I mean, that has come so far. So
it's great to hear there's such a mindset change there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Again, several years ago, they never would have questioned me, let alone anybody else. But today, the whole mindset for the staff is, is there something I can help you with? And, they're not rude about it, but it's like, hey, is there something we can do? What do you need? And, just making that contact. And, so I can only imagine if somebody that was not authorized was on the campus, how quick that would get reported.
One thing, too, I'll add, the Centegix platform also includes something we've been using for years called IdentiKid, but it's our visitor management software, and Centegix actually purchased Identikid recently, so it falls under that same conglomerate. So it allows us to do visitor access and visitor management there in the schools. We do have some key card access in some places, not throughout the district, but working on those because those are so easy to track. And if you lose a card, then you can deactivate it. It's much more safe than a key getting floating around somewhere. So we've looked at rekeying the district too, because that's something you really need to do, every so often, because it gets a lot of keys and sometimes in the wrong hands. So the door's only secure if you can manage the keys that access it, right? So just looking at every part and piece and trying to stay one step ahead of any threat or any kind of problem we might encounter. That's the goal.
And well, the technology you guys are describing really sounds state of the art. And from what I'm hearing, the state legislature is making this more affordable for school districts.
Yes. Yeah, it's really helped us a lot, and and that's an effort. They're really specific about how they lay out the money and what it's used for. For instance, the Centegix system could only be used in the schools. We can't use it for the central office or for any of the peripheral offices out there or other buildings that we own. It has to be where the students are located. So you got to be. It's all centered on a focus of kids, because that's where the target usually is. So been really helpful to have that from the legislators for sure, 100%. They unfortunately it's taken a lot of bad things to get people's attention, but I think there's been a lot of focus put on it. And here in Georgia, it seems like more proactive than reactive, trying to be on the front end of that. And we've, from a state standpoint, the money's been there. Hopefully that'll continue to be the case, where they can continue allocating. It's one of those things you never arrive. I think that's what is the biggest challenge for us that we face. And Sheriff Craig, same thing. Like, you never, all right, we got another year of implementing these things, these strategies, and these trainings, and then we will be there. Like, you never, there is not a non-existent place. You never arrive. You never can say you're 100% safe. You're just always trying to combat the new threats that are out there. Anything from cybersecurity, which has become a big thing now, and just any kind of new ways of people trying to cause harm. Unfortunately, they're always going to be there and in place, and we got to make sure we're trying to stay a step ahead.
And social media plays a big role in that, in things we have to react to and deal with and try to get ahead of. So.
100%.
Social media is actually something I'd like to discuss. In the information age, we're bombarded by sensationalized stories. When you think about schools, you see things on the nightly news or reports about drugs, violence, things like that. But our community is different than other communities. We have our own challenges. I'm just curious, from your own observations, do you see any challenges or trends amongst our students, or maybe areas you would like parents to be more aware of or to address with their children?
So I feel like, social media has its place. I'm not anti-social media. We obviously know that's where youth turn to communicate, and where they glean a lot of their knowledge, and where they get exposed to a lot of things, good and not so good. I think just parents' involvement in their kids' lives and knowing what they are spending their screen time on, because most of the threats that we see come through social media, it's a copycat threat, or something that's been originated or been created from somewhere else outside of sometimes even our geographic area, and it becomes some type of, this is going to happen here on this time or whatever, to get people concerned and to raise some kind of, worry or threat or fear. And then obviously that gets our attention, because you can't just say, oh, well, I'm sure that's not real. Every threat, the Sheriff's Department does a great job of vetting and looking through every single thing that we run across like that. So I think my biggest, request, or I guess wish, and I have a kid in the system, so, I try to do this with my kid, but just be in contact and be in touch with your child, and know what they're doing and looking into, because it's hard. I mean, as a parent, we didn't grow up with this technology, and certainly we got a lot of grandparents that are involved in raising their children too, and they didn't grow up with the technology, and they don't understand maybe what all's out there. I mean, I don't understand everything that's out there either. So just trying to stay up on what your child is doing, what they're into, because a lot of times we do deal with a situation, like, oh, I've never even heard of that app, or it's buried on their phone somewhere, or it's in, they never even knew it existed, so they didn't know what to look for. So I think the main thing is keeping that constant communication with child, knowing what they're into, and then talking about what's out there, and the lack of reliability of information that's out there. The reference point of what's really accurate and true versus what anybody can put on social media, and then all of a sudden you get 2 or 3 people that like it or follow it or whatever, and then it turns into something else and snowballs, and then all of a sudden it's got 1,000 followers. All of a sudden, well, it must be something if it's getting that much attention. But a lot of times it just originates from some idea or somebody having idle time on their hands and using the technology for harm instead of good.
And nowhere around here. I mean, we dealt with several instances this past year that, obviously we get a lot of stuff from Pickens, South Carolina. So, you get something going on that says Pickens County, the students especially will look at it and say, well, this is here. I'm going to share it with my friends, and they start sharing, and it spirals. And next thing you know, we're dealing with a possible school threat and discussing, are we going to have school the next morning, or how are we going to address it? We notify our entire CID staff, our investigators, and they're working behind the scenes trying to verify, confirm, the information. It's like Chris said, if the parents could be more involved in what's going on with their students, their children, and then be willing to call us when they see something, instead of we dealt with so many cases over the years where a parent would see something online. It's like, oh my God, there's going to be a school threat. Don't send Johnny to school. Well, then they send it, repost it, and then send it to their friends. And then next thing you know, you got 300 people that have seen this. Nobody once has picked up the phone and called us or the school. So, I ask, anytime you see something like that, to please call us, let us know, let us check it out. And then we will keep them informed as we go through. But, if you see something, say something, don't post it, and people are real quick just to hit share and go on about their life. But, there's with the school threats, and, we've had hundreds over the last year or so that had originated other counties, other states, and then ends up being shared through. And then, we're behind the scenes trying to figure out where it come from, to a new thing that we dealt with, that not necessarily dealing with social media, but a swatting calls, where they'll get on the phone. And we had this happen over this past year is, hey, I'm at school, I've had this happen, somebody's been shot, and then they hang up. We have to take that serious. If you get that call, that notification, we're coming. Meantime, our folks behind the scenes are trying to run it down and figure out, whether it's in the school or in the home. We had several swatting calls where people would call and say, hey, I'm at such and such address, so-and-so's come in and shot somebody. We get there, everything's fine. We've showed up, 4 or 5 deputies and police officers show up at your house and, bring you out of the house at gunpoint because they think a shooting's occurred when, it was somebody playing a game and thought it'd be funny to make that phone call. And those are serious. They are crimes, and we will prosecute those that we find. So.
Yeah, I guess that's part of the problem is the speed. Which things go. I think the quote is something like a lie has spread around the world by the time truth can lace up its shoes. And, when you're online, the consequences don't really seem immediate, but I guess it is important for everybody to remember that, our words do ultimately carry weight.
And that we will investigate each one of those instances, and we've made a few arrests over the last year dealing with those situations. So, we take those serious and have to, So
I know we talk a lot about the relationship between, school system, administrators, sheriff's department, SRO. One thing I didn't want to leave out is, to me, one thing I always really try to focus on in the school as the administrator, as the principal, and ultimately it rests on your shoulders, is the culture that's created inside that school. If you have a culture that is accepting of more bullying and allowance of some things, more lax approach, and you're just going to focus on school work and not as much the environment, the culture, then you're going to deal with more problems. I mean, naturally. So, like I said before, if a kid's not safe, doesn't feel safe, to me, that culture inside the school, and it starts from top down. It, of course, it takes everybody. About 125, 130 employees just at high school. So everybody from the cafeteria workers, the teachers, administrators, whoever, office staff, building a culture where the kids feel safe. They feel like somebody's in their corner. They can come and talk to people, but also commanding that we're going to treat each other right and do right by each other. And I know teenagers, you put 1,350 teenagers together, they're not always going to get along. We don't expect that. I tell them, I'm like, you don't have to be friends with everybody here, but you do have to be friendly. And just making that stance of we're not going to tolerate you making someone else feel bad about being here or scared about being here. They walk in that door and they don't feel safe. I don't care how good the teacher is. No offense to teachers. We got some great teachers, but they're not going to be effective if that kid's worried about, walking to the bathroom or going down the hall to the next class or whatever. So we can't undersell how important building that culture is. And the SROs are a huge part of that too. I can't tell you how many times we had kids that would go to them and wouldn't come to a teacher they saw in class every day for the whole year, but they'll come to that SRO. Mm-hmm. Just another tool in our kit to make sure we're providing the best for those kids. And one other piece of technology too I failed to mention is the school district has a software that picks up on keywords and different things that could pick up on a kid sending an instant message or some type of message or typing something out that could indicate the possibility of some kind of violence, either harming of themselves or of somebody else. And when it does that, it relays that back through technology and ultimately to the administration at the schools, and they can bring me in with a counselor or whoever and talk to them, SRO, and try to figure out what's going on. So that's a nice piece of technology that we've utilized quite a bit as well.
Wow, and that picks up on messages sent in the schools?
Within the school through school devices, obviously, not through their personal cell phones, but every kid is issued a Chromebook, in our district from first grade up, I believe. So they, if they're in there typing or looking up something, that gives us cause for concern, then it will alert through our technology folks and ultimately to the administrators who can then take that, depending on the severity of it, to the SROs. And so, the technology is there. We got to utilize it to the best of our ability, but it takes a lot of resources, a lot of man hours and people to oversee it, or it's just no good. It's like a book on a shelf. If you never take it off and read it, it's not going to do any good. So you got to be able to manage it. But we got great people that want to do right and be there for the kids and make sure they're safe while they're there and take it very serious. And that's what it takes.
Definitely. Well, gentlemen, I'd like to kind of wrap up the conversation by asking you really just to speak to the people at home. What message would you give parents and students about the culture and safety that exists here at Pickens County Schools?
Well, I think the message that has to be clear to everybody is we exist for you. Without the kids, we don't have this partnership. We don't have the need for my role, for the teachers, for anything, all the people employed, school district's largest employer, Pickens County. So without them, we don't exist. This program doesn't exist. So they are the most important people in our building, period. But as the adults, we've got to understand that that's the case and operate with every decision we make, with every dollar we spend, with every initiative that we implement, that they are the most important, and that's what the focus has to be. And building that culture inside every school, whether it's at elementary, very young age, all the way up through high school, that it's a place that not only we want you to be and come in and thrive in, but that we have to make it to where you want to be there, and it's somewhere you want to look forward to coming to every day. I'm not asking that kids do a backflip off their bed and start getting really excited every morning. I know that's kind of unrealistic, but make it a place they feel safe. They want to come to, not just the social aspect, but that is part of the draw especially as they get older. But every person in our building making concerted effort every day to make sure every kid that they come in contact with knows that they're there and they exist for them. And going out of your way to try to find a kid that maybe doesn't seem to be as open or interactive with other people and maybe somewhat of a loner, go up and talk to them. Go up and say, hey, what's your name? I haven't noticed you here before. Make them feel important. Make them feel special. And the culture can be very much undersold, and the focus can end up being on everything that we are trained to do in education and not about as much of the environment. And so that becomes really, really important. And that involves the sheriff's department. They're part of our staff in these schools. Hopefully they feel like They're not just somebody that walks in there every day that works just for the sheriff's department. I feel like the ones we have and the ones we have had and the way it's designed is they are part of the culture. They are embedded into what we're doing there every day. And that's the only way it can work. And that's why the relationship has been so well, because the people that have been put in here strategically have done so in a way that they want to be part of it. They want to be around kids. They love that interaction. And that is, a huge piece to this being successful, the way we interact and operate. So kids got to feel safe. The adults got to understand their role, and they got to come in every day, because the adults aren't 100% either every day. They all have things going on in their lives from time to time, just like the kids. So, but making sure those kids feel important, safe, cared for, and know their worth when they walk in there every day, because inevitably you only have a certain amount of time with them, and you're going to make an impact. And it's up to you as an adult whether it's going to be a good positive impact or not. And that's what, we try to preach to our staff.
Obviously, we do the same thing through the office. A lot of folks look at the sheriff's office being in the schools, think, well, we're there just for the law enforcement standpoint. And while that is true, we are there for the law enforcement and security. But, for us, and again, I've said it over and over, but it's about that relationship we can build with that student, that they know that we're here for them. And not just in the school, because we're in a little different situation at the office is, we're out in our community 24/7, no matter what. We're out there, we're in the schools, we're out in a lot of the homes, with the kids we're dealing with, and we want to build that relationship with those students and let them know that we're here for them. And, we've seen time and time again where, let's say Kevin Roach, who was at the high school last year, had a relationship, and these kids felt comfortable talking to him. They then bring, issues, concerns that they're having maybe at home or out in the community. And, it's an environment that has been created there at the school, but it goes with those students when they go home. And they know that outside of school, if they need help, then we're going to be there. And I think that's real important. So.
Well, Donnie Craig is Pickens County's sheriff, and Chris Wallace is Pickens County Schools Chief Operation Officer. Gentlemen, thank you for this very enlightening conversation today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Enjoyed it.